All right, so this video is going to cover 2.2, which is looking at parts of an equation and breaking down or combining like terms. So when we do this, make sure you get a copy of these notes. Should be on the front table, which I'll probably have already told you that. All right, so let's get started. So when we look at parts of an equation, let's look at this equation right here. We have 14x plus 9, or this is actually an expression, not an equation. The only thing that makes an expression different than an equation is equals. Since we don't see equals, that means we just have an expression, not an equation. All right, so 14x plus 9 minus 2x plus 8 minus 5x plus 1. All right, so now we have three different things here. We have variable terms, we have coefficients, then we have constant terms. So let's just focus in on the variable terms right now. Now, a variable term is a coefficient or a number and a variable. So like we have 14x, we have minus 2x, so we keep the minus with 2, so that would be negative 2x. And then we also have 5x, but the minus is here, so we make that negative. So make sure to write these down. All right, now inside of that, I already kind of said it, but inside of that, it actually breaks down a little bit further. 14x is actually 14 times x. That 14 is a number. A number right beside a letter, which we call a variable, is a coefficient. So it will be next to a variable. So the coefficients here for x, 14x, negative 2x, and negative 5x are 14, negative 2, and negative 5. So that's how this breaks down. It breaks down into a variable term. So the entire term is a variable term, which is 14x, for example. Then we break that down further, and the coefficient is 14. X is just a variable. All right. Now let's go to the constant terms. You'll see that there are numbers without any letters or variables. Those are just constant terms. So 9, 8, 1. All right. Now, you'll notice that those don't break down any further because 9 is just 9. There's no x or anything like that. Now, hopefully you'll notice, we are keeping these separate. They are separate for a reason, because a constant term and a variable term are not like terms. So that means this. We can't add a 14x with a 9. Let's see. We can't add a 14x with just a 9 because one is a variable term with x, one does not have x. All right. So now let's go to some examples. So when we look at these examples, we're just going to break down the variable terms, the constant terms, and the coefficients. So let's look. All right, so let's look at this. Now, what you could do right now is pause this and see if you can figure these out, because I'm going to go over a bunch of these and you can see if you can figure these out. That's a good way to go about this. So if you want to do that, just go ahead. So the variable terms are the terms with the variable and the coefficient. So like for 11a plus 4, the variable would be a. The coefficient of that variable is 11 and 14, or 11 and 4. So 11a stays together, so does 4a. That variable term is that entire thing. Now, the constant term, there are none. You don't see anything here without like an a. So just put a line through that. All right, now last is the coefficients. So the coefficients are actually what come before a. So that would be 11 and 4, and they would both be positive because there's a plus sign here, and then there's no negative here, so that means it's positive. All right, so let's do another one. So the variable term would be 3x, 7x together. All right. The constant terms would be anything without an x, just a normal number. So 6 and -4 because of that minus sign, which if you didn't get those, it's probably because the minus. You probably put 6 and 4, but make sure you account for that minus. That makes it negative. All right, and then last, the coefficients, which the coefficients come from the variable terms. It's the number in front of the letter, if you really want to make it simple. So 3 and 7. All right, let's do another one. So number 3, -12m minus 3 plus 4m plus 16. So the variable terms would be this and this, the whole thing. So -12m and 4m. All right, so it's the coefficient and the variable. Now, the constants are anything without a variable, which is 3, but there's a minus here, so that makes it -3. All right, and then 16. And then last, we have our coefficients, which are just the numbers in front of m, and that would be -12 and 4. Now, I'm going to go through the rest of these. Actually, let me look and see if there's any hard ones. I'm going to go through the rest of these, and you can just see if you could figure these out. So let's see. This would be 6k and k. This is more just for you, so you can pause and work on these and make sure you get the right answers. -4, -2, 6, 1. Let's see. That would be -5p, -2p, 3, 13, -5, -2. All right. That should be good. I think if you know how to do those, you'll be all right. All right. Now, let's skip down just because this is where maybe you could get a little confused. On number 9, we have 8a minus 7b plus 1 minus 2b plus 3b. When we say variable terms, any number with a variable, that coefficient and the variable both count. So that means we actually have 4 here because a and b are both variables. So 8a, 7b, and actually it would be -7b, then -2b, 3a. Now there's only one constant, it would be 1. All right, and then the the coefficient would be in front of the variable. So that would be 8, -7, -2, 3. 8, -7, -2, 3. All right, and then see if you could do 10 on your own, so you can pause this, but I'll go ahead and put the answers so you have them. 11x minus 4y, or -4y, 2x, 8 is the constant. And then let's see, the coefficients are 11, -4, and 2. All right. Now, that is all leading into the next portion. The reason it's so important to be able to tell the difference between these is for the next part, which is combining like terms. What we need to do is figure out what is a variable term, what is a constant, because we can't add variable terms and constants together. So we can simplify these expressions by combining like terms. We're going to combine common variable terms and constant terms. Here's how this works. Now, the reason it's important to know the coefficient, because you may be asking, well, I know why we need to know the difference between variables and constant terms, but why do I need to know coefficients? So I'll show you. So if we look at this, let's do this. Let's underline anything that's a variable term once, and we'll underline anything that is a constant twice. All right. So anything that's a variable term, let's underline that once. 14x minus 2x, so -2x, and then -5x. All right. Now let's go back and underline anything twice that is a constant. So 9, 8, 1. Now, doing this approach that I just did, that is how you can keep up with these. Anything that has one underline can combine with anything else that has one underline. Anything that has two underlines can combine with anything else that has two underlines. You could also, some people use circles, some people use different kind of methods, but this is the method that I've seen. So underline one set one time, anything else that is a like term gets underlined as well. And then you can put two underlines for the next one, and then we could go further. We could do 3 and 4 and do it however we want. So now you may be saying, okay, how do I combine a 14x and a 2x because of the x's? Well, here's what you do. It's important to know the coefficient. What you do is combine the coefficients and then just keep x in the answer. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to say 14x minus 2x, because this is actually like saying this. It's actually like saying 14x plus negative 2x. Now, that's just minus x. So personally, the way I do it is this. I always think positive numbers are plus. Anytime I see a minus, that means minus. So once again, if we start this over, I'm going to start by saying 14x minus 2x. All right. Now, that's going to give me 12x. So what you can do is cross out what you've already done. So now that we've used those two, we can cross them out. But now we still have one more x variable term, which is right here. And there's a minus in front of that. So we're going to say 12x minus 5x. And then we cross this out, and that equals 7x. So once again, you add or subtract the coefficients and then just keep x in your answer. The only way x is ever going to disappear is if this happens. So let me show you this just in case it happens. Let's say I had 2x, and then I subtracted 2x. 2 minus 2, hopefully if I ask you, what does that equal? You would say 0, which would be 0x. Now, 0 times anything is what? Hopefully you're saying 0, which means that just goes away. All right, that's the only time your x will no longer be x, is when it's 0x. All right, now let's finish this. So we've done the x's and we've crossed those out. Now let's look at our constants, which are 9, 8, 1. So 9 plus 8, because this is a plus 9, so that's positive 9. This is plus 8, so we're just going to add those two. 9 plus 8 would be 17. So we can cross those out. We get 17. Then we still have one more, plus 1. So plus 1. Then we can cross that out. So we have plus 18. So this is the entire expression simplified. Now, what we have to do is be able to look back and say, okay, did I actually mark everything out? The reason I was marking these out as I went is because you're going to get to a point where you start to realize that if you don't pay attention, you leave some of these numbers out. So the way you can fix that issue or make it to where you never make that mistake, you can just cross them out as you go. So let's go to 11. So these are going to start out easy and then they get a little bit more difficult. I may save you from, like, if you look all the way down, I may save you from some of, like, the 28 and some of those. But I mean, we do need to still know how to do that. But that one's a little extreme. All right. So let's go back up to the top. All right. Number 11. So here's what we're doing. We are simplifying each expression, which in this case means combine like terms. Now, let's underline everything that has an x. Now, when we do that, we only underline two things. So these are the only two things we have to add. And we're adding two positive numbers, so we just take our coefficient, which is the number in front of x, and we add those two. So 4 plus 11, or 4 plus 7 is 11. And then we bring down our x. That's our answer. All right. Now let's look at the next one. See if you could do this one on your own. You can pause it and see if you can do it. All right. Now, what's always understood to be in front of a variable is 1. I'll show you why. If I have k, That is actually 1K, because here's what it looks like. 1 times K. And if I ask you what is 1 times K, you would say K, right? Now, a lot of people will say this. They'll say the number in front of K is 0. Let me show you why it's not 0. If I say 0 times K, just like I did up here, what is 0 times anything? You would tell me 0. 0K is just 0. It is not just K. So that is why this number in front is always 1. Because if it's not 1, then if it were 0, let's say it this way. If it were 0, K would not be there. You'll never see this written as 0K. All right? That applies for all variables. So we could do the same thing with X. We could do the same thing with Y. We could do it however we wanted. So what we actually have is 1K minus 6K. And those two are like terms, so we underline them. Now, what I have to do here is the coefficients, 1 minus 6. Now, this is why I made such a big deal at the beginning about adding and subtracting these numbers. Because if you can't do this, you are about to run into some trouble. So here's what we can do. Now, 1 is being subtracted by 6. 6 is the bigger number. So you know your answer is going to be negative. Because if I had like $1 in my bank account and I took away 6, I'm going to be in the negative. I'm going to owe someone some money. So that's how we know it's negative. Then what you can do is just take the two numbers and subtract them and get the difference, and it would be 5. So negative 5 is 1 minus 6, and then we just add in our K, which is our variable. All right, so let's keep going. Now we have a little bit more. We have 6C plus 1 plus 11C. So we underline our variable terms, then our constants. All right, so 1 underline for the variable terms, 2 underlines for the constants. You'll see the variables have C, so we can add the coefficients. 6 plus 11 is 17. C, and then add 1 because there's nothing else, and that is how it looks. All right, let's keep going. We've got 7 minus 2y plus 12. So we underline 7 twice, 12 twice, and only once for minus 2y. Now, 7 does not have a negative in front of it, so it's just positive 7 plus 12, which would be 19, and then we bring down minus 2. Now, here's what you could also be doing while you're doing this, which out of habit I'm not doing, but you'll want to do this. As you go through these, you can mark them out. Like when we added 7 and 12, just mark it out, and then you know what's left. When I did 6C and 11C, just mark it out. Like when I did these two, mark them out. So that way when you get to one that's a little bit harder, it's a little bit easier to do. So let me try to find a hard one. Let's go down to 22. All right, so on number 22, we have a lot going on now. Now we have a few more terms, so we need to be able to underline things and double underline the constants. So the first thing we need to underline is the variables. So the variable terms, negative 7, x, then just x, and then 6x. Now let's double underline everything else. Okay, so let's start with the variable terms. We have negative 7x plus 1. Well, plus x, and that's like saying 1x. So we would say, okay, negative 7 plus 1 is negative 6. So I have negative 6x when I do these two. Now I just need to add 6x. Now, this is the example I was talking about where the x's will now disappear. Because if I do 6 plus 6, well, negative 6 plus 6, that's 0x. Anything times 0 is 0, so that disappears. So really all we have left to do is, well, we can mark this out. All we have left is negative 12 minus 9. So negative 12 minus 9. Now, this is a negative number. So that's like saying I owe someone $12, or in my bank account, I have minus $12. If I pay somebody another $9, I'm still taking away. So this is still going to remain negative. So we know that this is negative. Then you can add the digits. So we can add 12 plus 9, and we end up with our final answer, which would be negative 21. All right, now one more real quick. If you have A's and B's, here's what you have to know about A's and B's or X's and Y's. Numbers with different variables cannot be added either. Like when I look at 23, I need to underline my variable term first with X and X, but then this variable term with Y would get a double underline because those two, an X and a Y, are not the same, so they can't be added together. And so like for this one, we would say negative 8 plus 23 would give me 15x, and then negative 2y minus 2y would give me minus 6y would give me minus 8y. So these two also can't combine together. Just like on this one for 24. Let's see. A's would get an underline. On this case, we'll actually have to make 3 underlines. All right, and then this one would get the third. All right, so then all the A's we add together and cross out. So minus A minus or negative A minus 3A would be negative 4A. Negative 5B plus 4B would be negative 1B. Minus 11B would be minus 12B. And then 2 would be on the end. All right, so that is the lesson. Work on the homework. And if you run into trouble, not the end of the world, but that is combining like terms.